WADR. Promoting dialogue.
It's midday in Dakar and Banjul, 1 p.m. in Lagos, Nigeria. Good afternoon and welcome to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting on 94.9 FM and worldwide at wadr.org. Here are our top stories. Gunfire near Niger's airport sparked security concerns, marking the second instance in 2026. Several domestic workers in Senegal face assault and lack of formal contracts as calls mount for basic social protection.
They work extra hours without pay. They don't have days to rest. They are all maltreated and their rights are not respected.
Citizens in the Gambia question government's promise to safeguard lives and property amid rising crime.
Now you can get stabbed while walking or even in your own house.
If you cannot manage your country, you are putting the lives of your citizens at risk.
Aviation authorities adopt Lome's declaration to improve air travel within Africa. Please stay tuned for the details of these stories and more.
On the news, this is Veronique Joy.
Many thanks for joining our broadcast. We begin in Niger, where gunfire was heard early this morning near Niamey International Airport, triggering a major security concern. Residents living near the airport reported hearing sustained gunfire and explosions beginning around 6 o'clock in the morning. Witnesses said the shooting appeared to originate near the airport's main entrance gate, raising fears of a possible terrorist attack. Details by Augustine Coley.
Security forces were quickly deployed to the area, establishing a heavy military presence around the airport and nearby neighborhoods. Soldiers were stationed at key access points while such operations continued throughout the morning. By mid-morning, residents reported that the gunfire had ceased and the situation appeared to be under control. Nigerian authorities have not yet released official details regarding Thursday's incident, but security operations remain ongoing. For now, calm has returned to the area as investigations continue. The incident has revived memories of the January 28th and 29th attack on Air Base 101, located adjacent Niamey International Airport, which was later claimed by the Islamic State group in the Sahel. That attack left several military personnel injured and caused damage to infrastructure, including an ammunition depot. Retreating attackers also fired on civilian aircraft parked at the airport, damaging planes operated by Aska Airlines and Air Cote d'Ivoire. Niger continues to face persistent threats from jihadist groups linked to the Islamic State and the Group for the Support of Islam and Muslims JNIM, which are also active across neighboring Mali and Burkina Faso.
That was Augustine Coley with the details of that report. In Senegal, the Constitutional Council has ruled that it lacks the authority to examine a petition seeking Ousmane Sonko's removal from the leadership of the National Assembly. The country's highest constitutional body was petitioned by opposition lawmakers who challenged the legality of Sonko's return to Parliament. For more on the ruling and the implications, here is Abdullahi Hassan.
The Constitutional Council has dismissed a legal challenge seeking to overturn the return of former Prime Minister and PASTEF leader Ousmane Sonko to the National Assembly. In a ruling delivered on Wednesday, the country's highest constitutional body said it lacked the authority to examine the case, arguing that the matter concerns the legality of an administrative act rather than an electoral dispute. The council noted that the petition was filed after the final results of the November 2024 legislative elections had been declared and had no direct connection to the electoral process. As a result, the judges rejected the case without ruling on its merits, effectively clearing the way for Sonko's continued presence in Parliament. The council was petitioned by opposition figures who argued that the PASTEF party leader was reinstated in violation of the Constitution and the National Assembly's internal rules. The ruling further strengthens Sonko's political position following his recent return to Parliament and subsequent election as President of the National Assembly.
Abdullah Hassan filed that report. Still in Senegal, domestic work remains one of the most common yet least protected forms of employment across the country and West Africa, with the vast majority of workers operating without formal contracts or access to basic social protection. These concerns are being raised at a forum in Dakar convened by the Center for Research and Action on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights. The organization is calling for stronger enforcement of labor laws and improved access to sustainable social protection for domestic workers across the region. Imo Edit has more.
How can we strengthen the effectiveness of the legal frameworks? How can we ensure access and sustainability of social protection?
Those concerns form the basis of discussions focused on strengthening social and health protection for domestic workers. According to research, more than 90% of domestic workers in Senegal and West Africa do not have formal employment contracts, exposing them to exploitation and limiting their ability to seek legal redress. Madam Jewel Kotanjai is a representative of the domestic workers.
They work extra hours without pay. We don't have holidays. They don't have days to rest. They are all maltreated and their rights are not respected.
For Dr. Fatou Jallo, Executive Director of the Center for Research and Action on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, political will is still a challenge in ensuring these rights.
Across West Africa, what we would like to see is the ratification of ILO Convention 189, the convention that protects the right of domestic workers worldwide. In Senegal, we are pushing, but still we need that political will that will help us to pass the last phase, which is the ratification.
Ousmane Sis, Vice President of the National Assembly's Commission on Sustainable Development, who reiterated the Senegalese Parliament's commitment to strengthening protections for workers in the sector.
The National Assembly will pay particular attention to two major initiatives. First, the expansion of social and health protection. Second, reviewing and strengthening legislation to put an end to abusive practices.
The forum comes amid growing calls for domestic work to be fully recognized as decent work with the same rights, protections and dignity afforded to workers in other sectors.
Imo Edit with that report. We will bring you more on this in our guest interview segment.
More stories coming up on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Now we head to Ghana, and a new report has warned that corruption risks within Africa's defense institutions could undermine efforts to address growing security threats across the continent. Published by Transparency International Defense and Security, the assessment found that all 17 countries surveyed, including several in West Africa, face highly critical corruption risks. WADR's Nadide Tete reports from Accra.
A new Transparency International report is raising concerns about accountability and oversight in defense institutions across Africa. The Government Defense Integrity Index assessed 17 countries, including Ghana, Sierra Leone, Mali, Niger, and Nigeria, and found that all face high risk to critical corruption risks. While Ghana and Sierra Leone were among the better performing countries, the report says significant vulnerabilities remain. Mali and Niger were classified among countries facing critical corruption risks. Researchers point to weaknesses in military procurement, financial oversight, and operational planning, warning that these gaps could affect the effectiveness of security responses at a time when many West African countries are battling terrorism, violent extremism, and organized crime. Speaking at the report's launch in Accra, Head of Research at Transparency International, Defense and Security, Dr. Michael Ofori-Mensah, said stronger accountability measures are needed across the continent's defense sector. The report also found that none of the countries assessed had sufficient safeguards to address corruption risks during military operations. Transparency International is calling for stronger parliamentary oversight, greater transparency in defense spending, and improved accountability mechanisms to ensure security resources are used effectively and responsibly. For WADR, Nadidi Tete, Accra.
Shifting to security, the Gambian government says it remains committed to safeguarding lives and property amid growing public concerns over recent criminal incidents and homicides reported across the country. Last year alone, Gambian police recorded 25 murder cases, a slight decrease from 29 cases in 2024. In a statement issued on Wednesday, authorities in Banjul said efforts are ongoing to strengthen national security through enhanced policing, improved intelligence, and community-based crime prevention initiatives. WADR's correspondent Sang Donald Mendy has the details.
The government says recent criminal incidents, though worrying, do not signify a breakdown of law and order in the country. According to authorities, security agencies continue to carry out investigation, make arrests, and pursue prosecutions through the judicial system. However, a number of recent violent crimes, including high-profile murder cases, have heightened concerns about public safety.
Anytime I step out of Tujereng, I just know that I'm with God until I come back home.
You cannot manage your country automatically. You are putting your country, also the lives of your citizens at risk.
Now you can get stabbed while walking or even in your own house. I feel so scared, especially when I'm out there.
According to Gambia Police, the country recorded 25 murder cases in 2025, a slight decrease from 29 cases the previous year. Authorities have not yet released an official nationwide murder figures for 2026. Samsi Desar is a security analyst.
While crimes and violence are unfortunate realities in every society, isolated criminal acts should not be mistaken for a complete breakdown of national security.
Authorities say ongoing security sector reforms aimed at improving professionalism, accountability, and operational efficiency remain on course. They maintain that creating a safer environment for all residents remains a key national priority. For Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, I'm Sangdana Mendy, reporting from Banjul.
The federal government of Nigeria has dismissed reports claiming it plans to introduce new taxes on telecommunications services and petroleum products. Authorities say the reports misinterpreted recommendations contained in a recent International Monetary Fund (IMF) assessment of the country's economy. In a statement, the Ministry of Finance clarified that suggestions in the IMF Article 5 consultation report do not automatically become government policy. Yeche Nusasitu has more.
The clarification on Wednesday follows concerns that Nigerians could face additional tax burdens amid rising living costs and economic challenges. With tens of millions of Nigerians living below the poverty line, economist Alester Wilcox says any attempt to introduce new taxes could place further pressure on households and businesses.
The macroeconomics of the country is getting stable, but the micro, which is what touches me and you every day, that's where I have the challenges. Overburdening that sector, tax sector alone, we put the government in the bad light and we put the microeconomics of every Nigerian into jeopardy.
While the government maintains that there are currently no plans to impose new taxes on telecom services or fuel products, tax increases are part of the IMF's recommendations for Nigeria's economic recovery. Here, Wilcox says rather than introducing additional taxes, the government should focus on alternative ways of generating revenue and block leakages.
Government revenue is affordable. For me, I think the problem is, yes, there are loopholes that needed to be filled. There are still people that are not taxed. There are still people that are supposed to be taxed that are not taxed. So it is better to widen the net than to suffocate the few that are still paying tax. So I think the international monetary agencies, they should be patient with Nigerians and help Nigerians in that direction.
The government noted that the telecommunications excise duty introduced before 2023 has been repealed, while the value-added tax waiver on petroleum products remains in place, urging calm among the population. However, a section of the population fears that this assurance is only temporary as several economic reforms were fully implemented after they were dispelled by the state. For WADR, Yeche Nusasitu in Abuja.
You're listening to Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio, broadcasting from Dakar, Senegal. Here's a reminder of our top stories. Gunfire near Niger's airport sparks security concern, marking the second instance in 2026. Several domestic workers in Senegal face assault on lack of formal contracts as calls mount for basic social protection. Citizens in the Gambia question government's promise to safeguard lives and property amid rising crime. Aviation authorities adopt Lome's declaration to improve air travel within Africa. Still ahead in the news, we have press review, guest interview, sports news. Stay with us.
Fresh and breaking news all the time. Hear it first as the news breaks, only on West Africa Democracy Radio. Newslink continues.
Thank you for staying with us. In Togo, African ministers of aviation have adopted the Lomé Declaration, a landmark agreement to accelerate implementation of the single African air transport market. The initiative seeks to make air travel across the continent more accessible, affordable, and better connected, while removing barriers that continue to limit regional aviation. The declaration was adopted on Wednesday on the sidelines of the African Air Transport Convention and Exhibition, which has brought together aviation stakeholders in Lomé since Monday. Usman Umar has more.
African transport and aviation ministers have adopted the Lomé Declaration, a new commitment aimed at removing barriers that continue to limit air connectivity across the continent. The declaration, signed by ministers from African Union member states, calls for a more integrated African airspace and renewed efforts to make air travel more accessible and affordable. Among the key challenges identified are high taxes and airport charges, visa restrictions, cumbersome border procedures, and inadequate infrastructure, all of which continue to hinder the growth of Africa's aviation sector. Speaking on behalf of the ministers, Togo's Minister of Transport, Komlan Loku Kaje, said African countries want an open-air policy that will allow airlines to operate more freely across borders, reduce transport costs, and improve airport infrastructure. The ministers also pledged to work towards a harmonized continental framework on aviation taxes and fees to promote greater transparency and fairness. The Lomé Declaration is seen as a major step towards strengthening the single African air transport market, an African Union initiative launched in 2018 to boost economic integration, trade, and connectivity across the continent.
That was Usman Umar with that report.
This is the newspaper review. Stay abreast and find out what the top stories are in your country.
This is the newspaper review.
The newspaper review.
For the press review this afternoon, we head back to Ghana with Nadide Tete.
We'll start off with the Daily Graphic newspaper front page. Black Stars unite nation. And as you would recall, the Black Stars won its game against Panama this morning, and the whole country has been ecstatic, excited about the victory, even though many believe that there are different aspects that the team would have to work on for better performance in our subsequent games. Other stories here. Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire agree on common cocoa price, and government intensifies fight against digital financial fraud. That's it for the Daily Graphic newspaper. The Ghanaian Times front page. Nightmare on Accra in Sawam Road worsens as bad sections of Dobro and Achimota cause gridlock. So there's a road under construction, and it seems to be worsening and is causing a lot of inconvenience to motorists who use that stretch. Also here, government cracks down on encroachment with new lands tax force, and that should be it for the Ghanaian Times newspaper. Daybreak newspaper, Ghana and Pakistan deepen defense ties to explore opportunities. The Daily Democrat, government distributes 40,000 bags of fertilizer and drones to farmers. Also here, plastic manufacturers warn of massive job losses over planned styrofoam ban. So earlier this year, the Environmental Protection Authority of Ghana announced that there'll be a ban on the use of styrofoams in the country, and the plastic manufacturers are warning that it will result in job losses if that happens. That should be it for the newspaper review segment. It's back to you in the studio.
Thank you, Nadide Tete, for the press review.
Politics,
analyses on major news,
social matters, and all. This is A Guest.
Domestic workers across West Africa continue to face widespread labor rights violations despite existing legal protection, with studies showing that more than 90% of domestic workers in Senegal and West Africa operate without formal employment contracts. Our guest is Dr. Fatou Diallo, Executive Director of the Center for Research and Action on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, CADES.
We have done several research across the region, and more than 90% of them do not have contracts. They don't have labor agreements. They are just working because it's an informal sector. Here in Senegal, for example, 90% of the domestic workers do not have access to social security. Across the region, generally, 99% of those domestic workers said they have experienced violence during their work. It can be moral violence, physical violence, and other ill treatment that should not happen in a workplace. More than 98% are not affiliated to any syndicate or association in the region. That means that they don't have spaces where they can really talk about their rights, defend collectively their rights.
All right, why are these workers still working in such conditions, working without contracts, without social protection? What are the push factors?
In this region, the employment rate is very low. Most of the workers who are in the informal sector, often they are there because they don't have any other job opportunities. So job opportunities is very weak, especially for girls and women. Most of the women that we have seen across the regions comes from the rural area. So they don't know really how to bargain for their right, and they don't have any other options. So for different reasons, economic reasons, social and cultural reasons, most of them who might be able in their rural villages to work in the agricultural sector have seen the agricultural sector being really shrinking, and they have to find other alternatives. And some of them, the easiest one is to get into the cities and go for this kind of work.
How serious is child labor in this issue or in this sector?
Child labor is a very concerning issue. We have seen that more than half of the domestic workers are young, some of them being even between 12 and 15 years old, something that most of the legislations in those countries is not allowing but still is happening, is a very prevalent issue. And for child labor comes as well with many other abuses because the child are more vulnerable, they are more voiceless, and that as well is a very concerning issue. Beyond child labor, there is as well human trafficking, for example, in certain countries, especially for domestic workers that are at the border of certain countries. There is really an issue about human trafficking.
What specific reforms are you requesting across West Africa?
Across West Africa, what we would like to see is the ratification of the ILO Convention 189, the convention that protects the right of domestic workers worldwide. And what we have seen so far is only the Republic of Guinea as well, the Republic of Ivory Coast that have actually ratified that convention. In Senegal, we are pushing. The technical work have been done by the different ministries, but still we need that political will that will help us to pass the last phase, which is the ratification of that convention. What we would like to see, and which is important as well, is reinforcing the monitoring work of labor inspections across the region, because many of the labor inspections are very weak. They don't have human, financial, and technical resources that are needed for them to really operate and protect those workers. And as well, there is the principle of inviolability, having the possibility to enter into the houses because they are just considered as private space. And often labor inspections do not have a free access or easy access to those houses. And that's as well one of the challenges. Another thing we would like to see is an empowerment of the domestic workers, economic empowerment, but as well legal empowerment. 99% of the domestic workers across the region don't know what is their right. They don't know that they have a right to a contract. They don't know that they have a right to rest. They don't know that they have a right to a decent work, for example. And we need legal empowerment strategies that really can help them. But as well, we need economic strategies. And as I said, many of them are not associated to social security. That means when they are facing health issues, they might have a lot of challenges to access health services. That is one of the issues we have to resolve. And that's why in this third phase of the projects that's aimed at strategically strengthening the domestic workers sector in West Africa, we are emphasizing on the issue of health, accessing social security, but as well on the regulations of all those agencies that are now being set up in the different countries and working just in order to facilitate the access to the market by domestic workers. Those agencies can be a very good way for them to be protected, but they have as well a lot of challenges in terms of just applying the best practices possible.
That was Dr. Fatou Jallow, Executive Director for the Center of Research and Action on Economic, Social and Cultural Rights, Cadres. All right, it's time for sports, and exciting results are coming out of the ongoing 2026 FIFA World Cup, with African nations putting up surprises. My colleague Sankule Janko joins me in the studio. Hello, Sankule. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Veronique Jai.
Sankule, we saw some exciting matches yesterday, including DR Congo making history at the FIFA World Cup. Tell us more about that.
Yes, indeed, Veronique. DR Congo made history on Wednesday by claiming their first ever World Cup point after a 1-1 draw with Portugal in their opening Group K match in Houston. Well, Portugal went ahead through João Neves, but Yohan Wissa equalized before halftime, becoming the first Congolese player to score a goal at the World Cup, would you believe? The result now leaves both teams on 1 point, with Colombia top group after their 3-1 victory over Uzbekistan.
In the second match, we saw England with a strong start in their campaign, with Captain Harry Kane inspiring the team.
Indeed, England made a strong start to their 2026 World Cup campaign, defeating Croatia 4-2 in the entertaining Group L class in Texas. Well, Captain Harry Kane, like you rightly said, scored twice in the first half, while Jude Bellingham and Marcus Rashford also found the net as England secure all 3 points. Well, despite impressive attacking displays, however, defensive lapses will be a concern for coach Thomas Tuchel ahead of Tuesday's crucial group match against Ghana.
Now we come to the region and talk about Ghana. Sankule, they certainly put a smile on the faces of many of their supporters, didn't they?
Yes, they did, because indeed Ghana began their 2026 World Cup campaign with a 1-0 win over Panama. Of course, this was sealed by a dramatic stoppage time goal from Caleb Yerenchi. I hope I got that pronunciation right. Thanks to Christopher Atuja. Well, the Black Stars and all their 3 points despite the absence of Vice Captain Thomas Partey, who was denied a Canadian visa on 2 occasions. The result now moves Ghana into second place in the group behind England, and makes the second African side to win at this tournament after Cote d'Ivoire, of course, beat Ecuador.
The second round of fixtures kicks off today, and South Africa is once again at the center of discussion among many African fans.
Yes, of course, following their 2-0 defeat to South Africa. Mexico, the Czech Republic will now take on, and South Africa will take on Czech Republic today at 4 p.m. And like you rightly said, the fixture is drawing attention beyond football, because with some African fans reportedly backing, South Africa's opponents in the protest against anti-immigrant sentiment attacks on foreign nationals in both countries. But Bafana will hope they will do the talking on the pitch when they take on Czech Republic at 4. And in the other fixtures today, Switzerland will take on Bosnia-Herzegovina at 7 p.m. And later tonight, co-host Canada will entertain Qatar at 10 p.m.
Finally, Sankule, as the second round fixture starts today, what is the hope for the continent?
We've seen a mixture of some very great results in the first half of fixtures, and then hopefully in the second round of fixtures we'll see some improvements from the likes of Senegal as well as Morocco, hoping they could register their first victories in the second round of fixtures.
Obviously, we know only Ghana and Cote d'Ivoire have secured victories so far. Thank you very much, Sankule Janko, for the sports news. And with that, we've come to the end of this edition of Newslink on West Africa Democracy Radio 94.9 FM. Thank you for listening, and many thanks to Mustafa Sek and Mauda Juve for the technical assistance. Do interact with us via social media platforms X, Instagram, and Facebook at WADR English. I am Veronique Njai. Good afternoon.
We thank you for listening to Newslink in Nigeria on Love FM Abuja and Darling FM Owerri. In the Gambia on Hot FM Banjul, Hilltop FM and Veritas Radio in Serekunda. Thank you for listening on Alternative Youth Radio Lofa County, Liberia, Radio Kegaman in Nimba County, and DCN Radio Riverses County. A big thank you to Radio Baft FM in Sierra Leone for listening, and in Ghana we thank Radio Pad in Damango and Royals FM in Wenchi. Thank you all for listening to Newslink.